climate is a very crazy climate, man.
I trust our government.
Right.
I trust our government officials that they won't disrespect the Constitution like
However,
that. Right?
yeah, the behavior that we have seen from Donald Jamal Trump in these last 4 years, especially here at this last moment.
I've always considered this coronavirus similar to a STD.
Okay.
And the fact of how
Definitely, okay, that's the hot take. Okay. Well, all right, we back. Welcome.
Hey,
Be the People is live once again, another Tuesday. Thank y'all for joining us. Yeah, I'm excited again. I got to compose myself because I get super excited when we get to this part of the show. Okay, hello, I am Lawrence W. Sanders Jr. I'm your host, and we got LaWade riding shotgun.
man, I feel like Norbit Tuesday, man.
Right. And we have 21 days, 15 hours, 58 minutes, and 29 seconds until Donald Jamal Trump is out of office. I just thought y'all should know that. Interesting fact for today. However, we are Be the People, and thank you for joining us. If you are driving home, please be safe. Keep your hands and your eyes on the road. But if you are by chance in the passenger seat or you are on with us, drop a comment. Let us know you're here. Let us know you're hanging out with us. We got a great show lined up for you today. We actually have somebody really cool who's actually a doctor. So that's how you know we really listen. We graduating, LaWade.
There we go.
We got doctors and influencers on the show
All day.
This is amazing. Got some really good information, fact-based. Try to keep our opinions out of it. Won't dwell too much on that. So who we got, LaWade? Who we got on today?
All right, so we have Dr. Jennifer Butler, right? Dr. Jennifer Butler from the Bahamas, the Bahamian.
Bahamian,
right?
hey.
A Bahamian who earned her undergraduate degree from the greatest HBCU of all time, Tuskegee University, and her medical degree from Wayne State University School of Medicine. She went on to do her internal medicine residency at State University of New York, Downstate Medical Center in Brooklyn, New York, pulmonary and critical care medicine fellowship at WSU Henry Ford Health System in Detroit, Michigan, and sleep medicine fellowship at the University of Chicago Medical Center. Wow. You say it out loud. Wow.
Right. This is why I'm excited because this resume is.
But we're not even done yet. So you can take my word for how dope she is, right? But a quick Google search will let you know that she has a 4.8 rating, right? But don't let me tell it. Just a couple things that her patients have said. They said Dr. Butler explains the complex into simplicity. She has good experience. Dr. Butler is great. She has great experience. She listens to everything. Man,
wow,
we got some dopeness on the
just
dopeness on the tracks.
And she's the product of an HBCU, so that's here we go. You know,
dopeness on the mic. Dopeness on them, and she wear her mask.
Right,
man. She COVID
thank you
before COVID.
Thank you for joining us today. Like that is wow. I'm and you're Bahamian. y'all make the best conch fritters.
World. Definitely.
That's what you got for the doctor, right?
Hey, listen, man. It's more than just being a doctor. It's the heritage.
Right.
You are Bahamian. Y'all make the very best conch fritters. However, we're not here to talk about the Bahamas. And thank you for joining us. We are here just to get a doctor's perspective on some of the stuff that's going on in the world. So let's get right into it. COVID-19.
Yeah, what a year.
That thing again.
To say
what a year. It has, I think when we all made our New Year's resolutions for 2020, nobody thought the year would turn into a global pandemic and we would see the amount of devastation, not just to people's health, but also economically, where people have lost their jobs and are in really bad financial destitute situations. So it can only get better from here.
Yes, indeed. So, okay, so we know that there was a vaccine that just dropped not too long ago.
Yeah.
And Wade took a poll. And the results were very very interesting. I was a part of the poll, and the results of those polls was basically no, nobody's taking it.
95% of the people polled said no, they would not take the
no, they would
vaccine.
not take it. That they would
Yeah.
not take it. Now,
Yeah.
can you inform us? Because again, educationally, help us understand. Help us, and I say that, and I think I know why a lot of us are against it.
I'm just curious when you say why. Can you elaborate? Are you talking about the legacy of healthcare in the African American community?
Bingo. You are a dope doctor and a psychic. This is amazing. So check this out. No, right. And so when we talk about it a lot as African Americans, we look at things from a historical perspective. We don't ever look at like one isolated incident. We look at and we talk about police brutality. It's never just this one black man was assaulted. No, like we look at the big picture of our relationship with law enforcement, and with you being somebody who graduated from Tuskegee, I'm sure you're kind of aware of like historically some of the
Yeah.
things that have happened with our relationship with healthcare. So
Yeah.
along with myself, who is looking for a different perspective, like a more informed perspective, somebody who is on the front lines, help us understand this vaccine as it relates to us and give us some hope.
Yeah. So I think it's understandable, especially when it comes to Black and Brown communities, that people would have hesitancy about moving forward with the vaccine, because it just seems like everything via Operation Warp Speed that was unleashed by the federal government seems to be just so new and not tried and true, if you will.
Yeah.
And understandably, considering the legacy, especially in the Black community, of healthcare misuse, abuse, exploitation. We think about things like the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, for example. There's a lot of mistrust there.
Yes.
I think the bigger concern that I have is when we look statistically at the numbers about who COVID-19 has affected in this country. It has ravaged Black and Brown communities. And so when we look at the data, the number of African American infections, cases, or deaths compared to Caucasian counterparts, Blacks are 3.5 times more likely to contract and die from this disease.
Wow.
Latino Americans or Latinx are 2.5 more times to contract and die from this disease compared to their Caucasian counterparts. And so I think when we see how ravaging this has been to our community, the vaccine offers a ray of hope, a light, if you will, at the end of the tunnel. I think part of the issue with the vaccine is there probably hasn't been enough information that's digestible and easy to understand being pushed out to our communities so that people have a better sense of what they're dealing with. Case in point, I think a lot of people don't know that the idea of an mRNA-based vaccine, that's what the COVID-19 vaccine is, coming out of Pfizer and coming out of Moderna's pharmaceutical companies, it's a concept that's been worked on since the 1990s. So there is a female scientist by the name of, I think her name is Dr. Kaliko. She's Hungarian born. And she came to the US in the early 90s and actually was a professor at University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. And so she had been working on mRNA technology since the early 90s, but because her ideas were thought to be very far-fetched, she had difficulty getting grant funding. And she was actually demoted from her professorship after 6 years of being there and end up in the obscurities of academia until she ended up connecting on to private organizations. And now she's connected with the pharmaceutical companies, which has brought forth her mRNA technology and research to full fruition. And so because of the groundwork she has laid, she and other scientists who've been working on this since the 90s are considered to, or at least in the scientific community, think that maybe she should be fast-tracked for the Nobel Prize. So there was a really good article on her a few weeks ago, and I can't remember if it was the Huffington Post or Washington Post that interviewed her, and she just talked about that vindication she has now. 30 years of working on something, not giving up, not getting the funding, being demoted, losing her job, but continue to work on it. And now, because of her dedication and her tenacity, we have this vaccine. So I think understanding that this is not new new technology that just happened in 2020, that scientists have been looking at this since the early 90s. And I think that's one factor to consider. I think the other thing is, when we look at the side effect profile of this vaccine, people get concerned about that. I will say that people get the flu shot every year, and people have, can have side effects, and it's not something we grossly talk about. But the overall efficacy of the vaccine is safe and effective. We're looking at it to be effective of 95%, preventing you from contracting COVID-19, which is awesome. The side effect profile is similar to what you would see with the flu shot. So maybe body aches, headaches, maybe fevers, maybe chills. The one side effect that's been pushed out into the media was the side effect of Bell's palsy, whereby that facial nerve becomes inflamed. And as a result, you kind of have this twisting of the mouth that almost looks like a stroke patient. Well, when you look at the data, Pfizer had 43,000 participants. Only 3 people ended up with Bell's palsy.
Wow.
So, when you crunch the numbers, that's not statistically as significant as you would think as people who were getting like body aches or headaches, things like that. So, for us who are frontline workers, working in the ER, working in the ICU, who are taking care of COVID patients all day and all night, this is a ray of hope, especially because of us who have lost colleagues to this virus, who have died from this virus or have ended up with significant health, long-term adverse side effects because of this virus. So this is a ray of hope. I think when you look at who COVID affects, I think you're better off taking your chances with the vaccine than you are taking your chances with this virus, for which we don't know what those long-term health outcomes are going to look like. I mean, people are ending up with long-term lung disease issues, neurological issues, cardiac issues, not to mention the mental health issues that happens when you come into the hospital and you're isolated from family and friends and no one can come in to visit and see you.
Wow. I have a question.
So are hospitals still being locked down now, so to say?
Yeah, so, a lot of hospitals, once they start to see a surge in the COVID cases coming into the hospital, they will go into a visitation policy of a lockdown where they're not letting people into the building.
Wow.
And that's for the protection of patients and staff.
Yeah, right. So I do have a question. You mentioned something earlier. You talk about how as people of color, right, we are more prone to get COVID-19. Why is that? In your professional opinion? I mean,
Yeah,
you think the point is law. I mean, because your rap sheet and your attributes are just so whatever you say is good news to me. We'll go with it. Why do you say
Well, I think when we look at the spectrum of healthcare inequalities and inequities in this country, they've always overly burdened Black and Latino communities. And so COVID is just one prime disease that puts the spotlight on those communities again. But when we look at diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke, HIV/AIDS, if you look at the statistics of men who sleep with men, African American men who sleep with men, I mean, at one point it was said 1 out of 2 men could be HIV positive. Wow. These are the kind of numbers that are coming out of our community. So it's not just COVID, it's across the spectrum. When we look at the rate of maternal and infant mortality amongst African American women, is exceptionally high compared to our Caucasian counterparts, even when you adjust for socioeconomic status and education. Wow. But I do think, to answer your question, I think it's multifactorial. I think you have a combination of economics playing a role, lack of access playing a role, bias within the healthcare system itself. We talk about, structurally based racism that has been present for decades upon decades, and more now, a younger generation of physicians are recognizing it, acknowledging it, calling it out, asking for cultural sensitivity training, things of that nature to create interventions to help mitigate these inequities. But they've been there for decades. I think just COVID is just another large example putting a spotlight on it.
Yes. So, question, Dr. Butler. Right. There seem to be different brands of vaccine, so to say, right? Brands and quotation marks, right? Like Pfizer, AstraZeneca, et cetera, so forth. So is it like that? Like it's a different type of brand, like different types of Kool-Aid, different types of drink, or is it just like one, right? Great value, right? Or is it just one brand of like Visine just administered through like 5 different companies?
Yeah, so it's all the same technology. It's the same vaccine. They have said that perhaps the mRNA content in the Moderna vaccine may be a little bit higher than the Pfizer vaccine. When they've looked at the side effect profile of Pfizer compared to Moderna, maybe a little bit more increased in things like body aches with the Moderna compared to Pfizer, mainly because they felt like the mRNA content in the vaccine was a little higher in the Moderna, and perhaps that's why some of the trial participants had those effects. The good thing that I would say about both pharmaceutical companies is that they did try to include Black patients, Latino patients in their trial, and then they also included HIV patients as well. So it gives us a better sense that they at least made the attempt to have some type of representation in that trial data.
So this is not like a great value brand versus, like a, Miss Bear's brand. Like it's all
right.
It's all the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, you are in the ICU.
Yeah.
During this time, tell us, explain to us what that's like, because I ask simply because there are people who say, well, COVID is not real. We have those people. We have people who are like, oh no, they try to make it political. They try to make it, it's this party is trying to do this, but you are someone who is a doctor who is in the ICU, and the way Wade explained it, it was like this is probably the last person that you see either before you walk out or before you meet your maker. So explain to us like what is that like? Like what is the pressure? What is the stress like? Like what is the culture like? I mean, how does it affect, if not you, like your colleagues? Like explain that to us. Like walk us through that.
Yeah, I've often said that I wish I had a camera that I could put on top of my head and stream it live so people could see what was happening and is still happening in the ICU on a daily basis. So perhaps they would take it more seriously for people who doubt that this virus is the real deal and it's not a hoax. So life in the ICU now is intense, challenging, devastating emotionally for families and patients, healthcare workers. Everybody's tired, fatigued. It has been incredibly stressful in terms of when we hit these surge numbers and we hit capacity and we're running out of beds and we're running out of equipment. It's been hard. And, I work with an amazing group of physicians and nurses who are pushing through this despite all the challenges and adversities that we're facing. But, at the beginning of this pandemic, nobody knew what it was. And as the months went on, our knowledge base started to grow. I think that we faced the PPE, protective equipment shortage. That was real. So, we took for granted that we had these masks to protect our face, the gloves to protect our hands, the gowns we had to protect our bodies. We took that for granted. And when we hit a supply chain shortage where we didn't have that in the surplus amount that we needed, that was incredibly stressful. When you start running out of equipment, people need to go on ventilator machines, artificial life support. That is highly concerning as well. So it has been it has definitely been on a whole nother level, as I like to say. And we just take it one day at a time and try to keep pushing through.
So, Dr. Butler, we see you as a person with the mask on, right? So there's a person behind the mask. So how has working in the ICU actually affected let's say, your family or your personal life, if it's affected it at all?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, one of my colleagues that I work with, a guy named Rob Sykes, he actually served in the Navy before he came to work in the ICU. And he described it best. He described it as we're all on this long-term deployment, and in some cases suffering from a little bit of PTSD. And it is a challenge to communicate sometimes to family and friends what we go through on a daily basis. Because unless you're in it sometimes, you probably don't understand. You don't have the appreciation. So, I have definitely become closer to God, a lot more prayer, asking for covering and protection every day walking into this unit. Because the reality is I could be just like one of my colleagues and the next day I could be on the ventilator. There's no line separating myself from my patients at all. That could be me in the bed tomorrow. So that I would say definitely prayer, and having family and friends that just reach out and provide that emotional support has just really allowed me to continue to push through.
Wow. So let me ask, how or what can we do to protect ourselves?
Yeah, I love that question. So,
Please.
so, I feel like a lot of public health organizations, including the CDC, have done a great job with pushing, the wash your hands, the wear your mask, the social distancing. I think what we want the general public to know also, though, is we know it's the holiday season. We're all humans and we're all social creatures. But you're going to have to abstain from these large family gatherings. People coming from different households, coming across the city, coming across state lines, and you don't necessarily know what people's public health core measures have been within themselves and their families. And they're bringing this virus to their loved ones. And sometimes people who themselves are immunocompromised or have severe health issues, and they could be asymptomatic with the virus, but their loved one who has these health issues ends up in the ICU on a ventilator. Wow. So we want to ask the public, please, during this holiday season, please, 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 social distance, please, please, please wear your masks, wash your hands, take it seriously.
Take it seriously. And I would like to say that I admire you in your mask wearing, right? So right now, right, you've talked this whole however long we've been online, and that mask has not moved off of your nose whatsoever, right? So I have a couple of those same military grade masks, or those not military grade, sorry, but those medical grade masks, right? And they tend to move down my face whenever I chat. So what's the proper way to wear the mask? Let me just ask it like that.
Yeah. So, first of all, you want to make sure your mask is covering your nose and your mouth. All right. That prevents droplets from coming out. You want to make sure you get a good seal on your mask. You don't have a bunch of air leaking from all over the place. And you have to make sure you get a mask that covers your face comfortably. Because if it's too tight, you're going to feel suffocated. If it's too loose, it's going to be falling all over the place. A lot of people tend to double mask. So I like when I'm out in public, if I'm for example, going to the grocery store, I'll have a medical grade mask like this that has the ribbing on the top, because that ribbing on the top helps to form a nice seal on my nose. And then if I want to be stylish, then I put a little cloth mask on top of it. So I'm double masked at all times. I treat everyone in every place like it has COVID. Right. I really do.
So can you speak to the cloth mask real quick, please, pretty please, for those who are watching?
Yeah.
Like robbing stagecoaches.
Yeah. So, there's been a lot of emphasis on wearing a mask, but the question has been what type of material is best to protect yourself. So, the ultimate mask is the N95, but that's hospital grade and is usually reserved for healthcare workers. And the N95 is the ultimate grade because each employee has to do a N95 fitted test. So they spray different solvents, and then we do different maneuvers, and they ask us, can you taste it? Can you smell it? So if the answer is no, that means you've got a good sealed fit just for you. And there are different types of masks, and you will go through maybe several different models at your healthcare institution before making sure you have the appropriate mask fit for you. So that's the ultimate fit, ultimate mask, if you will. After that, the next step down is going to be a droplet or a medical grade mask like this, what I have on the top. After that, then we start talking about maybe kind of like the cottony type of fabric mask. And I get a little leery about those masks only because there's no actual filter there to filter those airborne particles coming through. I mean, something is always better than nothing, to be clear. But if in terms of what's the higher grade, your N95 is top notch, then your droplet, and then after that, you have your cloth grade mask.
And so just to verify, when we wear the second tier, not the N95, when we just wear like the droplet mask, the blue side goes out, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because the whole argument is like, well, why would I put? And it's like, no.
Yeah. So I always double mask. This is my N95 here. So this is the top portion, the blue.
Mm-hmm.
The inside is the white.
Right.
So blue is always outward, and white is on the inside.
Blue or whatever color you want to use. I have some black ones.
Right.
I got some black ones,
I have some pink ones at the house as well. So
I have some yellow. You
got yellow.
We got the whole.
You gotta be stylish with it. Understandable.
Right, absolutely. So this is real good. This is amazing. This is super informative. Now, I know this may be like a super turn, but we were talking about some of the things that we are kind of pre-exposed to. Sleep apnea.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about sleep apnea, because a lot of us struggle with it.
Yeah, and a lot of us are in denial about it. So sleep apnea is a disorder of your upper airway muscles that cause you to either have partial pauses in your breathing or complete pauses in your breathing when you're sleeping.
Right.
And the result of that is a series of effects. So if you're not getting enough oxygen into your body, that can put a strain onto your heart and cause your blood pressure to be elevated or cause abnormal heart rhythms that can put you at risk for a stroke.
Right.
You can also have increasing of your carbon dioxide levels if you have any chronic lung problems like COPD. But also it has a lot of neurocognitive effects. So if you're not getting enough oxygen and it's not getting to your brain, the next day you can have headaches. Yeah. A lot of people have issues with their mood, for sure. More irritable, more anxious, more depressed. And some people have issues with their energy level and just overall daytime awareness, and it can affect job performance and personal relationships.
Would this affect
Say it again?
Would this affect putting us in a viable state to actually combat COVID-19 if we were to contract it?
Would this affect
our immune system?
The sleep apnea or?
Sleep apnea.
Yeah, so if you are not getting quality sleep and you are effectively, for all intents and purposes, sleep deprived, and you're having a lot of fragmentation to your sleep pattern, that depresses your immune system. And if your immune system is depressed, it becomes very difficult to fight off viral and bacterial infections. Yes.
So, Dr. Wow, sounds like an alien. All right, so Dr. Butler, the sleep apnea tend to affect those in the African American community more than anybody else, or is this one of the things that we don't have to worry about as Black?
No, it's actually pretty prevalent in the Black community, and the Latino community as well. A lot of people have sleep apnea and it's just not diagnosed. A lot of people, they snore at nighttime, they choke and gasp for air when they're sleeping. They're the person that their spouse or their partner is constantly punching or elbowing at nighttime to switch over from their back to their side. And, during the day, they are not fully rested. They're not fully restored, but they think it's normal because they've never really felt rested. They've never felt really restored until they get treatment and they're like, wow, I really see the difference. Yeah.
So, man, I kind of want to keep going, but we should stop. So, real quick. It's like a roller coaster. Like it's so good, but then you just hate. It's like a good movie. You don't want it to end. But okay, so real quick on the sleep apnea, there are sleep studies that we should take, correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
taking sleep studies actually help us whether we would be diagnosed at that point. Like,
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
ahead
So
process, please.
yeah, so there's two ways to do a sleep study. One is a home sleep study in the comfort of your home, and then the other is a sleep study in a lab where you spend the night, usually at a hospital center or a private lab, and they put a number of different leads so they can monitor you. And ultimately, the goal is to make a diagnosis of sleep apnea and how severe is it. And then from there, your physician can discuss what are the treatment options for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's wow. Okay, so we ran out of time. Like, oh my goodness. What are some of your final thoughts? What's something that you want to leave with the audience? Something that we should know that from the doc.
Yeah, so I think in the spirit of us closing out the 2020 year, I think this has been a long road dealing with COVID on a daily basis. And I think that this vaccine provides light at the end of the tunnel. And so, I want to encourage people to do their own research from dedicated sources that are tried and true, and don't determine a decision about not getting this vaccine based on information that they found at random, because it's important to make an informed decision for yourself and your family, and your friends, because it could be life-saving. Yeah.
Very good. Well, there y'all have it. We got it straight from the doctor, not a
Yeah.
doctor. She is the doctor.
Hey, Jen. Sorry, Dr. Jennifer Butler. Sorry about that. So first off, I asked you a question that just came from the audience.
Oh,
Um,
I did see that.
uh,
I see it.
right. Sorry for your loss, Valerie, whose mom was in the ICU for 12
Yeah.
days.
So
So I'm
sorry for
sorry.
that. Yeah.
Sorry for that triggering effect.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yes.
but we
It's
do have
really sad.
yes, but we do have a question from the audience. As you can see there, can a person die from sleep apnea, or does your body always wake itself up?
Yeah, so usually your brain is always going to sense that your oxygen level is very low. So it's automatically going to wake you up. And so for some people, they have full awakenings and they, get up and go to the bathroom, or they get up and say, oh, I had a bad dream, or they just get up and change body position, or they wake up and they say, I'm up and I'm not quite sure why I'm up. But it's your brain waking you up because it senses your body is oxygen starved. Yeah.
Mm.
What is more concerning, however, is if your oxygen level is persistently low at nighttime and it's putting a strain on your heart, and it's going on for months and years and it's never being checked out, the more concerning factor was going to happen to your heart. And this is when we talk about people having those nighttime heart attacks or nighttime strokes, things like that.
Yeah.
Go get tested. Like I'm scared. I'm gonna go get the shot and do a sleep study. I don't care.
I love it.
I'm
I
All,
love
convinced.
all in
it.
person.
I'm convinced. So check this out. Thank y'all for joining us. Um, Dr. Jen, we gotta have you back because I just want to do like a Q&A segment. Like let's just because there are so many things, so many sources out here that we cannot trust. Like we don't know left from right, but it's always good to have a connection to somebody who's on the front line, who is reputable, and who is a great source of information. You are
Hmm.
definitely that. Continue, please, to fight the good fight and keep everybody informed. Prayers to you and your family as you go. Praying that you protect it, because again, it is crazy. It is a lot going on out here.
It
Um,
is. It
again,
is.
Absolutely.
thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, if you have not liked or subscribed this page, please do it so we can continue to bring you great content. I want to start a hashtag grow the show. Like let's let's do it. Let's grow
Yes,
the
grow the show, man. We've had 2 weeks, 2 interviews, phenomenal
show
information. Yo, y'all getting information for free.
for free.
This is you getting medical information for free,
Right,
man.
right. And it's not just from anybody, but this is the
Right.
last show of 2020. So please y'all be safe if you're going out. I don't recommend it. But if you do, like doctor said, please put on mask. gloves, sanitizer, wash your hands, sing the ABC song twice, 3 times if you need to, if you're saved for the Holy Ghost. But until next time, we love y'all. This is Be the People. We out. Peace. See y'all
We
next
out.
week.
Thank you.
Thank you.